November 29th rescheduled regular meeting of the Midcoast Community Council. I'm aware that several members of the council are out of town and will be using various exemptions to participate. So if we could call the roll, Scott.
Okay, Greg?
Here.
Gus? Here. Ann?
Here.
She's there.
But she's muted.
You have to unmute yourself, Ann.
Oh, do you hear me now?
How about Claire?
We heard Ann.
Looks
Thank
unmuted.
you.
We can't hear her. You can give us a little more volume on the screen.
I'll tell you what, we can hear
Yeah,
Ann, but you can't hear.
Oh, we can't hear them. I'm going to count Claire as,
I don't think we can hear anybody.
see Claire talking.
Yeah, let me.
Can you hear me? Can you say something?
Claire, you're unmuted. We just can't hear you. There's something wrong at our end.
Can you hear us, Harvey? Can you say hello?
I'm gonna count Kimberly as remote because I can see her, and Claire and Ann. I know
Okay.
Ann is there.
Claire,
So we have an audio problem in the room here. We can't hear the audience yet. We're working on it.
But I thought you could hear us earlier.
Okay, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're now ready to begin.
So hold on a second.
We're calling the roll, and Scott, you called Greg, yes?
Greg, Gus,
Yeah.
Ann. I can see
Here.
her. Okay,
I'm
We
here.
heard
Claire.
it.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Kimberly.
Hey.
She waved. I'm good with that.
Yes,
I'm
here.
I'm here, and Dan, you're here.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want me to make any? I'm going to say remote and voting.
Remote and voting, because I've been advised these people are using one of their 2 annual exemptions,
Okay, I'm just going to say remote voting.
but I don't think we have anything of consequence to really vote on tonight other than minutes, but we'll see.
Okay.
Here's what happens.
Okay.
All right, so I want to begin with a moment of silence in memory of Supervisor Don Horsley, who passed away. I had stayed in touch with Don, even though we met late in our lives. I was due to have coffee with him today. He bailed on me, unfortunately. Don was a man of uncommon decency and common sense. I worked with him first closely on the Medio Bridge project, where we went down and met with the residents there. And he said, if you can get the MCC to change its prior vote, I'll get the money for that Medio Creek Bridge. And I did, and he did. And even when the bill went from 1.2 million to 3.4 million, he still pursued the construction of that bridge. I know I will miss him. He was a bit of a mentor to me. When I found out he had cancer earlier this year, I tried to get him involved in some experimental clinical trials through my research associates. Nothing seemed to work. So he's passed away. But I do want to take a minute to recognize his contribution, which you've probably read about, starting, as a law officer who did good work out here, helping adolescents find the correct path in life, and worked here for about 20 years and then 3 terms as a supervisor. So if we could, a moment of silence in memory of Don Horsley. Okay, I'm now available for the Board of Supervisors report and reports from other government officials. We have Mike O'Neill here from the Supervisor's office.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. And as Greg mentioned, we all know that former supervisor and county sheriff Don Horsley passed away at 80 last Friday. He's a former teacher and beat cop whose ideas for reform propelled him to San Mateo County Sheriff and the Board of Supervisors. Horsley passed away last Friday. Of note, he started his police and law enforcement career in Pacifica. Horsley served 14 years as sheriff, 12 years as a member of the Board of Supervisors. His impact was tremendous, and our office is grateful for all the community members who have reached out, offering well wishes for his family. And we have no information is pending for regarding any sort of services. His request was to have the county sheriff do the funeral and all that. So Getting on to other news and it's kind of lengthy, so I'm going to just for everybody's information. If you want more information on any of this, go to the MCC website, and this is posted there, and the links are hot, so you can go to the website to get more information. There's a gun buyback set for December 9th in Belmont. The county and partners are holding an anonymous gun buyback on Saturday, December 9th at 400 Harbor Boulevard in Belmont. From 10 to 2 p.m., law enforcement officers will accept all guns, no questions asked, in exchange for cash. $50 for non-functioning firearms, $100 for handguns, shotguns, or rifles, $200 for assault weapons as classified by the state of California. And to those planning to attend, transport firearms unloaded and in the trunk of your vehicle. So that the link for that is on the MCC website. I believe also Michelle puts it on Coastside Buzz. The next one is there's some stuff set up for prepare for the winter storms. The National Weather Service has forecast above normal precipitation, and to help residents prepare, the county has there's a link at the MCC website for prepared step-by-step guide with where you can go for sandbags if you wish, and to get any other instructions you might need. There's also Sawyer Camp segment is now open. The Ralston Bike Trail reopens December 1st. The 6-mile-long Sawyer Camp segment of the Crystal Springs Regional Trail reopened Friday, November 24th after the months-long closure due to storm damage earlier this year. And repairs that have been ongoing for several months concluded with the restoration of a 25-foot wide collapsed portion of the trail. Ralston Bike Trail is open. I know we have gotten calls for this over the past year, and PG&E is scheduled to open that Friday, December 1st, when PG&E concludes work on the natural gas line in the area. You can apply if you wish to be on the Assessment Appeals Board. If, let's say, you are assessed and you feel it's unfair, this is the board you would go to appeal. And the application is, again, the link is on the MCC website. And they hear appeals for property tax assessment. There are some qualifications. They must have 5 years of professional experience in California as a CPA, public accountant, licensed real estate broker, or as an attorney. And you can call 650-363-4573 for more information. Also, there's flu, COVID, and RSV vaccinations now as respiratory virus season's upon us. County Health Association and Bay Area health officials are encouraging everyone to take and get the shots for the flu, RSV, COVID-19. If you want to find out where you can get it, go to myturn.gov to schedule vaccines or contact your health provider. And the flu and COVID are available for everyone for 6 months and older, and they have been updated for the new variant. RSV immunizations are now available for infants and young children, pregnant people, and adults 60 years and older for RSV. And they recommend if you're sick, stay home. It slows the spread of the flu and COVID and RSV. Test and treat for COVID-19 and the flu if you have any sort of symptoms. Consider wearing a mask, and see more from the California Department of Public Health. Now, we all go visit people around, the holidays and stuff, but they have a campaign of Don't Pack a Pest. The San Mateo County Department of Agriculture Weights and Measures are asking residents to not transport fresh fruits and vegetables from fruit fly quarantine zones. Los Angeles, Ventura, Sacramento, Riverside, San Bernardino, Contra Costa, and Santa Clara currently have fruit flies. Agriculture is $100 million a year in industry in San Mateo County. The estimates vary, but it supports families probably totaling and workers totaling over 1,000 people. So this is something that's serious. And personal travel is one of the primary avenues for spreading the spread of the invasive species, and all residents are urged to adopt the principles of don't pack a pest. Maps, quarantine restrictions, and other information are available at the MCC website. And if you have any questions, you can call the California Department FA Exotic Pest Hotline at 800-491-1899 or the San Mateo County Agricultural Commissioner's Office, 650-363-4700. And that concludes my stuff.
Mike, at the last meeting, we asked you to get us updates on all those color-coded yellow and red things.
And I have sent that forward, waiting to hear.
Okay, so you forwarded the request, and who's supposed to answer, and do you have an idea when?
That was several different departments, so and with holiday, you know what I mean, it's slower. I have sent second requests.
Okay.
So what are you talking about?
Well, we prepared last meeting a color-coded table of the letters and things that we had asked the county about, and some we received partial replies, some we received no reply at all, and we asked Mike to follow up.
And I have
doing his best.
followed up, and I got an email from Dan, and I have sent that request in. It has to be a special request for your budget, so I sent that in.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he sent that. I did that. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike? Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to say that I'm personally, very saddened to hear about Don's passing. I worked with him closely here in the MCC, and since 2010, 2011. Can you hear me? How am I doing on does it sound okay?
Hear you.
Okay. Anyway, very sad, and I just with condolences to the family, et cetera.
He actually grew up Daly City, graduated from Jefferson High School, and actually was a teacher at Westmore prior to becoming a cop.
Yeah, I read a lot of that. Yeah, learned a lot about.
Any other council questions? You're done?
No, I'm not done. So, last meeting, the new supervisor, Ray Mueller, was mentioning about the storm, and he repeated it today, tonight, the concern about, the heavy storm season. And he was kind of requesting, I think he was requesting the information, anything that we can do to mitigate any problems. And so I brought up that the drainage ditch, which essentially caused the flooding, the fact that the drainage ditch on the west side of Highway 1 by the airport is not functioning, was the cause of the flooding of Highway 1 last year, which I personally was parked on the side of the road for 5 hours trying to get people to kind of slow down, because that's a spot where people pick up to 70 miles an hour commonly. And there were no flares, there were no cones, or there might have been one cone, but there were no signs and no light. There was no sheriff on the side of the road. It was just flooded for 5 hours, which I witnessed with my eyes. I had my truck, I had the flashers, the hazard lights, and trying to tell people to slow down. Anyway, so yeah, this is a problem, and it may happen again this year. So we brought it up last meeting, and I'm just asking.
I remember you bringing it up.
Just asking if there has been any communication with Caltrans on this issue to find out, why I don't see any backhoes out there cleaning out the ditch. And did you send the videos?
I can't remember,
Or the
but
pictures?
we have pictures that I believe I sent. It's in the presentation the MCC did on stormwater. I can forward you the link. The video is very large. I drove through it on my way to the sand plant, and I found out the reason. I spoke to the contractor whose name was Andreotti. They were working at SAM.
At one time.
Yeah, at that one, they were trying to provide a barrier at SAM, which was flooding. And they said, "Oh, we did work back at the airport in that culvert. We weren't allowed to clean it up as much as we wanted because of the frogs and the snakes." So the implication is there's some environmental constraint where amphibians have moved to that low part of water, and now they're not allowed to clean the culvert to the degree that it needs to be to operate.
But just to clarify, you're sure it's Caltrans or is it county?
It's Caltrans
It's Highway
Highway.
One.
It's a drainage ditch on the side of the highway. There's a culvert underneath the Caltrans Highway.
Culvert.
Looks like a duck. And I have, was told, and I actually kind of, looked to confirm that the culvert underneath Highway 1 in that area is about 50% full of sediment.
Okay.
And my guess is still today, right now, it's the same. So at any time, if the rains come strong, that area will flood again.
I did send all of you the link to request service from Caltrans.
Well, I'm asking,
and
I'm asking super.
No, I'll send it
like you
forward
said,
too, but kind of,
Caltrans typically,
more people.
their emails
Yeah.
go into the shredder, as you've said before. So I'm asking, I'm hoping
No, but I'm just saying.
that Supervisor
the more
Mueller's
people
office
that
can
ask
take charge
for
and
it,
actually get someone on the phone and get an answer and have it reported back to us.
the more people that can, call them, the more people will probably get a repeat answer. But I'll do that this week.
Well, there were people stuck on the side. There were probably, there were a lot of issues with that flooding. I don't know that anybody got seriously hurt, but I know there's some property damage. Vehicles stuck on the side, had to get towed out, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Hopefully it doesn't happen again. But it kind of looks like it will, based on your report.
Yeah. There you go.
Any other questions from the council before I go to the public?
Clear.
I don't see any hands except Burnett. Burnett, you have a question for Mike O'Neill.
Yeah, I had a comment for Mike. He was talking about the sandbags and so on. At least at the Princeton yard, there were, when I went down there to get some, very limited number of sandbags down there, and they didn't have any of the bags that you can fill yourself. Normally, they have a bunch of bags there, so that if you run out of the pre-filled bags, that you can fill your own. And I noticed there was not a one there. They had the shovels to fill them, but there were no bags there. So if they can make sure they get those out, because the filled ones go fast if there is a problem.
I'll send an email to GBW and ask him to send some more.
So Burnett is a guy who's filled many a sandbag on Santa Maria for the last few years. Sid, you have a question for Mike O'Neill?
Yes, I do. I'm wondering, Mike, where are we supposed to evacuate to an emergency here on the Midcoast for our 11,000 plus members of the public, not including Half Moon Bay? They have another 12,000 down there.
I would suggest you go look at the agenda for the December 5th meeting of the Board of Supervisors. It was posted today. I think it's either 14 or 15.
So we don't have a place right now.
There's a consultant being hired to develop evacuation plans. So go look at the Board of Supervisors agenda for next Tuesday.
Okay. Basically, we have no place right now.
Any other questions for Mike in the audience here? Please step to the mic and say your name and ask your question.
Yes, my name is Patrick Tierney. I live at 241 Murata Road, Half Moon Bay, Miramar. Mike, I just had a comment. I had written Supervisor Mueller this week asking if the new Benio Creek Bridge could be dedicated in his honor. That is Supervisor Horsley. I worked with him personally, as did Greg, for a long time to get the Meteor Creek Bridge, and it's my assertion that the Meteor Creek Bridge simply would never have been replaced where it is without Don Horsley's effort. So he is very willing, a very, deserving person. And lastly, I would ask the Midcoast Community Council to support also a resolution to that extent tonight, if you would.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Any other?
I just responded. Yeah, I did see that email, but this meeting on Tuesday is the first meeting You know what I mean? After his death. So I have no idea what's going to happen, but I did see that email from you. Thank you.
Okay,
That's it.
is that it? We next turn to the next government official. Harvey, did you have a comment for Half Moon Bay?
Yes, I do. First of all, I want to wish everyone retroactive good Thanksgiving. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. Tomorrow night, the City Council of Half Moon Bay is having a special meeting to talk about the minimum wage resolution. We have on the table a $19 minimum an hour minimum wage that we're going to be discussing. I think that'll affect a lot of things on the coast. And also the 880 Stone Pine affordable housing effort to house, among other people, the displaced farm workers from the January shooting is making great progress. Right now, the plans include 47 very pretty mobile homes with parking and washer dryers, and the ability for the farm workers who are going to be living there to get equity and after 10 years actually own their mobile homes. So that's a very exciting thing that is going forward. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Harvey, have you heard anything on our request for funding a feasibility study for the community fiber network that your city and all our local agencies have endorsed and forwarded to the county? Do you have any information from Matt Chittister or anybody on the council there?
No, I don't have any information. I'll try to get it for you, Greg.
All right. Well, we're asking Mike to follow up as well, but I just wondered if anybody down there had heard anything about it. Any other questions for Harvey Rohrback of Half Moon Bay? Seeing none. Thank you, Harvey.
I'm sorry.
Oh, wait a minute. Dan Haggerty had a last minute question.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Harvey, I was hoping maybe you could report on the, what is it called? The project for Main Street that's been, it's going to come up to the Half Moon Bay City Council. What was it called? Something Streets, huh?
Streetscape?
Streetscape. Is that what it's called?
Streetscape. Yeah.
Can you report on what was agreed or what you think will be brought to the Half Moon Bay City Council and what will be the day of the meeting? Did we lose Harvey? Looks like we lost Harvey.
You lost Harvey. Okay, well, when he comes back, we'll ask.
Can we save some time for him to respond if he comes back?
Okay. Any other government officials who wish to speak? We see we have directors of GCSD and MWSD here. I don't know if they have anything they want to bring up.
I have
Sid?
not. Barbara might.
Okay, well, she didn't raise her hand, so we'll let her continue. So that concludes public comment. Seeing none other, moving on to the consent agenda. First, before I call for any kind of a vote on this, Scott, would you please relate the October 25th minutes? I see I did not post a new copy of them. We had posted them previously.
Okay.
What happened to the October 25th minutes?
Did Kimberly work on them? Was that the last minutes? Was October 25th
The ones before November 8th. You just did November 8th. Yeah. So you're not aware of making any changes?
I did not. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Just, I don't know if you all know this, but I had to leave quickly to come take care of my parents. My dad's been in the hospital. So I did not get to make to suggest the changes that I wanted to the minutes we voted on last time. And I apologize for that. And I haven't gotten to review any of the minutes that you currently have posted. So you can review those and vote on them without me, or we can postpone them to the next meeting.
Let's postpone them.
Well, I don't want to postpone the November 8th minutes.
Okay.
I've reviewed those.
Okay.
Did anybody have a problem with the November 8th minutes?
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I thought we were going to have public comment, so I was waiting to make a public comment about the minutes. So I just wanted to jump in before they're approved.
We've never had public comment on the consent agenda item, have we?
I don't think so, but I'm
Go ahead,
I'm
Burnett.
listening.
What did you want to say?
Well, I noticed back even pulling up what was posted, there's some typos in there. The one that was particularly interesting to me that was kind of funny was the middle of page 2. A comment.
Which date, Burnett?
The November 8th minutes. In the middle of page 2, there's a comment associated to Sid that says wellness check for people loving in cars.
I meant to say that.
All right. I guess
you mean to say that? I more like
No,
living
that's
in cars.
All right. So with that feedback, I can see we're pulling the minutes of November 8th.
All right, I'll fix that.
Right. Could you make a comment?
If I could make a couple other comments about it as well, there's a couple other typos in that same spot. I think that's Melinda McNaughton, and my first name does not have an E on the end of it. But more importantly, if you go up a little bit and you look at a comment associated to Ann, a pipe for Quarry Park to the adjacent pipe system is an option. I went back and listened to see if my memory was correct, went back and listened to the video. That comment was actually made by Supervisor Mueller. Ann had brought up the issue about Quarry Park, but he's the one who brought up the issue about
it was a response to Ann, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And you had put previously, you put in parentheses Ray Mueller, and the same thing should probably be done there for that. Ann did bring up a Quarry Park, but the comment about the pipes being connected to an adjacent pipe system is an option was actually brought up by Ray, not by Ann. Now, if I'm incorrect, Ann, you can correct me, but that's what it was on the video. The other thing that was up there that I thought was important, and I just took a quick look at this thing, and there's some other typos if you go through this thing, but just the other thing was on Ray's comments on the first page. One of the things that Ray seemed to be proud of that seemed to be missed was that he was working to get funding set aside so that there would be a fund available to do things like address infrastructure. I didn't see any comment to that effect in what was indicated under the comments he made under Supervisor Ray Mueller on the first page. So you might want to go back and look at that. It's in the first about 10, 15 minutes of the video. So it's not like you have to look through the whole thing, but he makes some comments about working with the county executive to establish some way to set some funds aside to be able to address infrastructure problems, et cetera.
Fran,
That was it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Fran, did you have a comment on the minutes?
No, I had public comment. You said public comment was over, but the people were asking questions of Harvey and.
Yeah, my phone overheated, but I'm back.
That was not public comment, so I was waiting for public comment.
Fran, let's do this. Let's finish Harvey. Harvey was unable to complete.
Okay.
Let's finish with Harvey, and then we'll go to public comment.
Okay. We've had a number of public meetings about the Main Street streetscape project. And I believe in December, we're going to have the completion of the public comments, and then the project will be going out to bids early next year, is my understanding. So you're welcome to participate in the December discussion about the final design of the Main Street streetscape project.
Is there any summary that you can provide us now? Or I didn't see any plans. I did go to the website, the city website. It was very difficult to navigate through, very difficult to find it. I guess I just tried to Google Half Moon Bay Main Street streetscapes, and then it popped up, right? But if you go to the Half Moon Bay website, we lost Harvey again. Anyway, when you go to Half Moon Bay city website, it's almost impossible. It's just really difficult to navigate.
Well,
and
so
find
let's
it.
boil it down to request a link from Harvey.
Well, a plan.
A link to
plan,
the plan, okay? A link to the plan.
I went there and there's nothing, there's minimal information about what they're planning on doing. There's no plan.
I'll check on it, Dan. I'll get back to you. I believe there should be, and if there isn't, I'll get it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
Sure.
So that concludes government officials. And now public comment, Fran Pollard.
Okay, hi, everyone. Well, I just wanted to say I sent you a note today and just wanted to thank everybody for your vote last month about, or was it this month? Yeah, last meeting, for upholding that we needed the dogs must be on leash signs in the community park within Quarry Park on the grassy field playground area above the tot lot. And we made that presentation to the Planning Commission and they approved it also. And the county, within a few days, put the signs up. So now there are signs in that grassy field above the tot lot that says dogs must be on leash. And it's not to be used as a dog park. So I just wanted to thank everybody for holding that up, and we finally got something done. Thank you.
Other members of the public with comments on not on the agenda?
The agenda
Includes the Medio Creek Bridge coming up next.
is Medio Creek.
Okay. All right. So now I will close public comment. And I would like to move to the first item on the regular agenda, which is a Medio Bridge update. Christoph, I've made you co-host. Can you hear me? Are you here?
Yep, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Sure. Feel free to share your screen with whatever materials you have.
Great. Just give me 1 sec.
Christoph is the project manager from DPW who was in charge of this project. And as background, Christoph is here because Pat Tierney and others emailed some concerns about, I'll call it the armoring, and he's been looking into it. So this is an update from Christoph on those comments, plus whatever else he has to share. Thanks.
Okay. And can you guys see my presentation?
Yes. Yes.
And the full screen. Great. So good evening, everybody. As Greg said, my name is Christoph Lisai. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works, overseeing the Engineering and Resource Protection Division. Tonight, I'll be giving you an update on the Marauder Road Pedestrian Bridge project, and then specifically provide details on the current condition of the soil nail walls and the perceived erosion on the ends of the walls. Just a quick refresher as far as the project schedule. So it's been a few years since we've started this. It started off in 2019 with the feasibility study, went through a SEQA review, permitting with the Coastal Commission, where you guys were very active in the local community. So we appreciate that. Final design in 2021, and then construction started in 2022. And then recently we completed the project for all intents and purposes. We had the ribbon cutting, which I think several of you attended as well. And so now we're working on final items to complete the project, which will include some signage, removing the temporary detour that runs parallel to Highway 1, and some punch list items on the walls. So this slide shows the current conditions at several locations where the soil nail shot creek wall ends. So the first photo on the left, this is the north end of the wall near where the historical wooden stair access was installed by the local community. The middle photo shows the same wall, but at the other end. So this is the area that wraps around underneath the bridge and up Arroyo and El Medio Creek. And then finally, the photo on the right shows the southern wall end treatment near the beach. The other end of the southern wall was built into the concrete staircase and does not have any signs of erosion. So the next set of photos that I'll be going over will show you the steps that were taken to build the existing wall, and they're intended to show both the different layers, structural components, and engineering that went into the construction of the wall. The photo on the top left of the northern shows the northern wall once all the vegetation was cleared and the existing bluff was scraped to remove loose and weak soil. Once we're able to find some competent soil, the contractor installed a soil nail system, and soil nails are typically made of steel. They're installed into the slope or excavation at a predetermined angle, and this is often done using drilling equipment, and we design the angle to ensure that the bluff has stability. And in our case, we also needed to design the angle to avoid the existing utilities that are under Marauder Road, like the sanitary sewer line. The drill creates a hole in the soil, and then the soil nail is inserted into that hole. Then grout, which is a mixture of cement, water, and sometimes additives, is then injected into the hole to bond the soil nail with the surrounding soil. The soil nail acts as reinforcement to prevent soil movement. They're usually installed in a grid pattern to create a network of support throughout the slope. And in our case, we're installed at 5 feet spacing, vertically and horizontally. And the soil nails were embedded anywhere between 25 to 35 feet into the bluff. Next, we install a facing system, which is installed to provide additional support and to create the structural layer for the wall. And in addition, a drainage system is installed to relieve any hydrostatic pressure behind the wall by using a combination of PVC drain pipes that are inserted into the bluff, and also geocomposite drain strips that collect water and then let it percolate out at the bottom of the wall. And so the photo here shows all of these elements, as you can see. We have the drainage elements here with the pipe and the geocomposite, the mesh, and then the soil nails once they've been installed. So the facing system is installed, and in our case, it was sprayed shotcrete. So that's basically concrete that's viscous enough to be pumped and sprayed onto the mesh. Once the shotcrete has a chance to cure and gain strength, bearing plates are installed around the soil nails. And the bearing plates shown in this example are 10 inches by 10 inches square and 1 inch thick. Again, this photo shows the bearing plates being installed around the soil nail, and then they're attached with nuts and bolts. And then again, some of the drainage features, which is the PVC pipes. And then as you can see at the lower area, we have some exposed wire mesh. We build the wall in sections. And so once the upper wall is completed, we go ahead and excavate down and install the next layer. This photo shows the initial shotcrete and the next phase of the wall, where we excavated down to the design elevation and then repeated the process of installing the mesh, soil nails, the shotcrete, and drainage features. And so you can see as we slowly build down to build the entire wall. This photo shows the final condition at the southern wall, and once the initial structural layer was completed in September of 2022. As you can see, the wall stops at a certain point, and then there's an extra row of soil nails that we install at the edge for additional redundancy and support, making sure that that area is really tight to the wall or to the bluff. Once we've completed the first layer of structural layer concrete, we then install an outer layer of colored and sculpted shotcrete in order to be able to blend the wall into the coastal environment. These next photos show the next layer of reinforcement that's being installed on top of for the top facing system. And this includes number 5 rebar that is bent to hug the contours of the wall and used as the base for the top layer of shotcrete. This photo shows the north wall after the top layer of colored sculpted concrete is installed. And then once the shotcrete wall is completed, the contractor then placed the existing riprap from the site at the toe and to the elevation approved by the Coastal Commission. As many of you are aware, the sand elevation fluctuates by several feet in the area, and the permit conditions require us to keep riprap at an elevation, which is 6 feet above sea level, where it would be covered at the lowest sand levels. The majority of the rocks are covered with sand, and you have the most usable beach area the majority of the year. Here's some similar photos of the other wall and the same operation as the southern wall. One thing that I want to point out with this photo, the top layer of shotcrete needs to completely cover the first structural layer so that the bluff can look natural and blend in. So in order to do that, we need to overspray the ends of the wall to ensure that the gray concrete is covered. So you can see the red line in these photos show the extent of the structural section of the wall, which is the limit that we were allowed to install per the Coastal Commission permit. So any shotcrete both on the first layer and subsequent layer to the right of the red dotted line is considered overspray. And so as you can see here, this is typically where the wall would end. And then as we come in, we overspray it and tie it into the existing bluff. And then this slide just shows some of the details of the soil nail wall system and the thickness of each layer. The photo on the left shows the two different layers. So you have the initial layer here, which is 4 inches minimum to 6 inches maximum. And in our case, it was closer to the 6 inches once we did some coring of the soil nail of the shotcrete wall. And then the second layer, or the top layer, ranges anywhere from 18 to 24 inches thick. And so overall, the minimum thickness of the wall is going to be about 24 inches or 2 feet and can go as thick as 30 inches. And then all of this is tied together with the soil nail walls, and then that is intended to hold up the existing bluff. Again, this just shows some of the minimum cover requirements that we have against the soil nail so that it doesn't get exposed and that it's protected from the coastal environment. So in addition to the soil nail, the project included stacking the existing riprap back at each end of the as existed prior to us needing to move it for our construction work. The photos on the slide show that the contractor completed this work in the middle of December 2022. So you can see the date up here, the wall's completed, and this is where the contractor stacked the existing riprap per plan into the elevation as required and allowed by the Coastal Commission. As many of you are aware, we had a very severe storm towards the end of 2023 or 2022 and into 2023. We were lucky to get the wall in before that storm hit. But this is what the riprap looked like immediately after. This is January 10th, 2023. And as you can see, the storm and the wave action dislodged all of the riprap that was placed and resulted in this configuration here. So again, the rock was installed as per plan, as required. And unfortunately, just due to the severity of the storm, it ended up being moved to the condition it's in now. So after we received the reports of the potential erosion concerns, we had several meetings and field visits with the design team on the project, including the coastal engineer. After the meetings, we have the following to report. So we know that the structural integrity of the wall is not affected by the current erosion. The erosion is occurring behind the overspray or excess layer of shotcrete. Additionally, we're only seeing it for the top layer of shotcrete and not the initial structural layer. We developed a plan to address this erosion, and it will include the following. So we plan to install non-shrink colored grout at the voids that we see at all three locations. So we believe this will help with the visual and prevent further localized erosion. And then we can also restack the riprap on the edges of the wall. However, this will likely require a permanent meet by the Coastal Commission. Also want to go over what we can't do in this situation. So we cannot import any more riprap to this area. The Coastal Commission was very clear on the amount of riprap for the project, and even being allowed to keep what was existing on site was challenging for us to get approved. So therefore, we cannot add more to the ends of the wall. Additionally, they specifically called out that we cannot use riprap to add protection to the southern wall, except for using what was already on site. Another limitation is the fact that we no longer have access to the beach from the adjacent area. The stairs that we built eliminated the access we used to get to the beach. And while we can access it from either the north or the south of this location, this requires further review and coordination with the Coastal Commission and the state parks if we're using the south axis. If we were to modify the existing riprap, it would have to be from the top of the bluff using a crane. And so, having said all that, we've determined to take the following step. So we've asked the contractor to move forward with grouting the wall ends at the three locations identified. We'll continue to monitor the area and determine if restacking of riprap is necessary. And then finally, we'll determine the necessary maintenance needs for the area as the beach is dynamic environment and be prepared to respond if we feel like the wall is in jeopardy. As many of you know, we get constant storms, and so there is going to be a maintenance element of this work. However, at this point, we don't see a need to restack any of the riprap that was installed. that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to take questions.
Well, let me start, maybe a little bit unusual sequence, but Pat, you and your email and inspection led to this further follow-up. So if you have public comment or questions you want to ask, I would defer to you as you're in the audience and present, and let you go first.
All right. Again, Patrick Tierney, Miramar, Half Moon Bay. Christoph, first of all, and Anne, and many others, thank you so much. It is wonderful to have the bridge there, and our neighborhood is connected again. Thank you so much. With that, I have concerns, as expressed to Greg and others, about the South Oceanside wall, Shot Creek wall, and the erosion that's already happened there since it was built. In my opinion, which is not an engineer, it's already back half arm length, and there's nothing stopping the erosion. That's just loose soil, barely compacted soil, and there's nothing stopping it from being eroded further. I was really pleased to hear you say something about an ongoing maintenance issue, and you're prepared to do that, because right now it's eroding every day on that southwest corner of the Shot Creek wall. I feel like even with all the details that you did, you can see the bare wall, right? You can see the bare soil right now in this picture. That is where the erosion is happening. And the erosion is happening where the riprap is below what it was and what it is currently to the right side as we're looking at it. So it's just bare ground right there, exposed to ocean waves every day, especially in high tides like we have right now. That's just going to eat up. The ocean's going to eat it up, and a lot quicker than the 30-year lifespan of the project. So I would request a couple of things. One is, if the riprap, in fact, was existing riprap was put in place after the Shot Creek wall on the southwest side was constructed, at a minimum, I think it should be replaced. If you go down there today, I can show you, and anybody can show you in that area, that it's eroding away. And it's going to cost a whole lot less to fix it now than it will if it erodes more behind the wall than it already is. So I know you don't want to tangle with the Coastal Commission again, but I think this is an issue that should be addressed sooner than later. Again, I appreciate your help on this, but I would look for, some specific actions in the near future to address that issue. Thank you.
So Patrick and Christoph, just to make sure we understand, in the screen that's currently, there's a crane there, a yellow crane. Mm-hmm. And Patrick, you're reporting the erosion is occurring immediately underneath where that crane is positioned. Yes. Okay, mm-hmm. So that's where we're talking about. Okay, Christoph, did you want to respond?
Yeah, we looked at the area, like I said. This photo here shows a higher sand elevation that is normal, so it's a little misleading, for lack of a better word. The riprap, is installed in there. Again, we don't think that restacking the riprap is needed at this point. Additionally, I think the adjacent property owner is working to look into protecting that bluff. And so, as far as the project and the plans, the riprap was installed to the correct elevation. The large storm hit. We're going to go in there, do the grouting, make sure to fill those voids. And then, like I said, we're going to monitor it. But at this point, based on the assessment from the design team and the coastal engineer, we don't feel like the project or the wall is at risk.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is you did your project to scope, and you did reinstall the riprap. You showed that in a photo, but the sea continues erosion outside of the scope of this project. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, I mean it's a dynamic environment. Like I said, I think we're going to be looking at what kind of maintenance requirements are needed for this area. But at this point, we don't believe that the restacking of riprap is needed.
Okay, other public comment. We have Burnett Silveria.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment. He alluded to some property owners or whatever, but that's actually where that crane is the parking area for the condos that are over to the right, to the south of the crane. That's not in the picture, but that is actually the parking area for a residential condo unit. So I don't know what kind of potential problems, liabilities could be coming down the line if that was to get washed out. So just as a comment, so that everybody knows, that area where that crane is just not an open parking area. It's actually an area that's used for the parking for the condos that are there. So it's just a comment that I wanted to make so people know exactly what's going on in that area. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Sid Young. Public comment.
Sorry. Yeah, it's not specifically about the bridge, but the county put in the bridge and they installed on the Half Moon Bay side of the bridge some rather dinky size receptacles for both trash and separately for poop bags for the dogs. And last week there was quite a kerfuffle in the fact that it was overflowing. Nobody's emptied it since ribbon cutting. And Barbara Dye and GCSD had Recology come out one time, but it's definitely on the Half Moon Bay side of the bridge. And those receptacles are definitely too small. And I just wondered if somebody dropped the ball and forgot to set up collection for that location, because Republic Services said it wasn't on their route. So I don't know. Ann Stillman's maybe still online, and maybe that's something Department of Public Works can deal with. But I don't think Half Moon Bay is a deficit already, so they're probably not going to want to pay for it. I just wondered if you could put in some larger receptacles for trash. Thank you.
Does DPW have any comment on what arrangements you make with surrounding jurisdictions for trash pickup? Is this something you deal with?
Yeah, we're required to maintain the area by the Coastal Commission permit, and so we're working through that process to try to identify the best entity to do that. We're working with our county parks department. We have a DPW crew, and then we're also going to reach out to some local agencies to see if we can get into an agreement to make sure that that area is maintained and that the waste and dog emit stations are maintained.
Okay. Any other members of the public before I go to the council?
Wait, Greg, he didn't answer about bigger cans.
Yeah, I'll check with our parks department. I believe we installed the cans that are typical cans in our parks departments. So at this point, we don't have any plans of enlarging those. I think what we'll work to do, we'll have to assess the situation and see what makes the most sense on the maintenance interval. We'll work to ensure that, the cans are large enough so that they're emptied and not full in between maintenance cycles.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Tierney, you had another comment?
Yes, I understand that to make the bridge project work, that the owners of the condominium that was referred to that own the parking lot sold part of that parking lot to the county so that the bridge could be built. So I think at least it should be checked upon to whether what we're looking at in this photo, the brown raw soil, is in fact owned by the county and their responsibility to have it maintained rather than the condo owners. I think that's a key question here.
Okay.
Yeah, I can speak to that. We didn't purchase anything. What we typically happens in situations like that is we get easements for our construction. And so for this project, we got a temporary easement that allowed us to work on their property. So we get temporary easements to stage like the crane that you see in the photo. And then we get permanent easements to allow the installation of our infrastructure. And so that includes the wall and the soil nails that were installed subsurface. And then through that process, we don't buy any property or take over any property. We just buy the right to install it on their property and then agree to maintain what we've installed.
Okay. I'm closing public comment on this. Now to the council. Dan, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, thank you, Christoph, for your report tonight. So I have a specific question about the it's the wall on the north side of the bridge. I'll be honest, I haven't been there recently, but a few months ago I was there and I noticed that the road side of the very top of the wall, the road side where the shotcrete, it wasn't chamfered. It looked kind of really unfinished. It was a really sharp, jagged, square edge. If you know what I'm talking about, the top of the wall on the road side. Now, I don't know since then if there's been grading to where the new asphalt is brought up to that, where it's not an issue. I imagine there's guardrail there now. Do you know if that was addressed, or is it still kind of a sharp, exposed 90-degree corner or concrete corner, the roadside top?
Yeah, so there is a fence that we installed on the top of the wall. I think we did pave that area as well. I'd have to look back. I know that was brought to our attention, and that's not how it was intended to be finished. And so we paved that area. I believe it was up to that area to make it nice and flush. And if not, I'll check in with my project team and just make sure that we take a look at that and eliminate any kind of potential hazards, and then make sure that what we kind of designed is installed correctly.
Thank you.
Okay. Next council comment, question, Kimberly Williams.
Hi, thanks, Christoph. That was really a great update. I have a couple of questions. First, I'd like to say that none of these things are surprising. I think they were all anticipated and mentioned before this project was even approved. So we shouldn't be surprised by this. And I don't think that there's an expectation that this bridge will last 30 years. So the question I do have is the ongoing maintenance. How much do you have a figure for how much that ongoing maintenance is going to cost annually?
We don't right now. We're going to have to kind of take a look and see. It's going to vary year by year, and really the maintenance is going to be, I think, limited to the riprap on the county maintained portion, right? So I would say the north wall is generally what the county considers its maintenance responsibility. So we'll work to make sure that, we monitor that and modify it and do any kind of maintenance needs as things occur. And then we'll make sure to work with the adjacent property owners so that they maintain their kind of areas. But no, I don't have a figure right now of what it would be.
Okay. And you didn't mention the final cost for this work. And I'd be curious to know what the final numbers are and how much over budget it went.
So it was, I believe, around 3.5 million. And the overall project had, I believe, 7 million in budgeted amount, but the project did go over the not to exceed amount by, I believe, $400,000. I can get back to you with the exact numbers. I don't recall the numbers, but
okay.
We have to go back to the board to increase the not to exceed. And that was mainly due to the effects from the winter, unanticipated water that we had to dewater, and we had some changes to the design of the staircase after the project was built based on comments we received from the Coastal Commission. So those two were the main driving forces for us going over budget.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just offer a little perspective, I seem to recall back in February of when I took office, we voted on this. It was $1.2 million. And before the project even got started, there was storm damage that knocked out foundation on one side of the bridge or the other and required having to build a longer bridge. And then there was a suggestion we had brought up about adding stair access to the beach, which I guess the Coastal Commission turned into a requirement. So to me, those were the major increases from an original $1.2 million number. I don't know, Christoph, if you go back that far.
Yeah, I was from the project from the beginning. I don't recall what the original estimate was, but the stair addition was a significant portion of the cost for this project.
And Greg, public access is a requirement. Christoph is right about that. That's not something you can get around. It had to be written into the project from the beginning.
Okay.
The last thing I would just like to ask, I guess something that you, just to put a bug in your ear, is that, eventually this bridge too will fail. And I think I would still like the county to look into alternatives for moving the trail. It's going to happen and we need to start planning for it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Scott?
So I just wanted to make one quick comment. Without the structural support, the walls on both sides of this bridge, that little house that's triangular probably would already be gone. The house on the north side of that stream probably would already be in the stream. And that parking lot is probably be gone also if it wouldn't be for those. So that basically saved all of that area. And the people that own that property should be very grateful that this was put in place. So,
all right. Well, I would like to thank Christoph for Claire, you have a comment or question?
Yes, just two comments that are not directly on this, but very close. First, adding on to what Kimberly just said, eventually this is going to have to be moved. I know it was very controversial in the beginning, and it may not be for 30 years, but eventually it will. And I'm, as somebody who's working on planning referrals, I get concerned when I see all the building that goes on in Miramar, and I really think that the people that do long-range planning should take a really good look right now at what's going to be needed when this bridge needs to be replaced further inland, so that everything isn't built up and they can't do anything. The other thing, just as a comment, probably everybody already knows this, but I believe there is currently a lawsuit between the city of Half Moon Bay and the condo complex. And it has something to do with the armoring there. I don't know the details of it, but that's probably another factor involved in this entire picture.
It's not a lawsuit between the condos and Half Moon Bay. It's a lawsuit between the condos and the Coastal California Commission. It's up on my website. If you put Casa Mira in there, you'll see an excellent presentation by Smart Coast California that talks about the lawsuit.
Okay, do you think that the lawsuit is relevant to this discussion?
Yes, it is. Okay. The reason is the California Coastal Commission in 2016 said that they were going to change the retreat. Sort of existing was the word that they decided they were going to change. Existing used to be existing in real time, but in 2016, because of retreat, they changed existing into as of 1977 when the Coastal Commission was formed, and it could have profound effects legally. I'll put the post into the chat. It's worth it. You have to watch the whole thing.
I think we've gone beyond the topic that we asked the DPW to address, and I do want to thank you, Christoph and Ann. I thought this was an excellent presentation and analysis showing, that the structure is as robust as it can be given the circumstances. And we do appreciate your continued follow-on with respect to maintenance and the question Dan asked about the chamfering or the jagged edges. So with that, if you'd stop sharing your screen, I thank you for your time.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Christoph.
Okay, our next issue is the Montero Mountain Preservation. And as backdrop on this, Kimberly had done a lot of work. I know Scott had done work. I'm not sure I'd recognize everybody who contributed, but we were left with questions about whether the work that was done was excessive or haphazard or harmful to the environment and so forth. And so we ended up taking a field trip with state parks, and we had, I think, Linda Hitchcock, and I can't remember the fellow's name who drove the truck. But he was the sort of biologist guy.
Yeah.
And so due to the Brown Act, only 3 members of the council could go. And it ended up being Scott and Claire and I. And so we took that trip, and as we were on the trip, we took notes and we published those notes. And we also discovered, according to the state parks person, that the American Tower Corporation had submitted a request for a coastal development permit to do even more. I'll use the word trimming, but state parks people were concerned about what they were asking for. And after we had been on the trip, we also were concerned. So just to complete this, at the time, we wrote an email, and I will try and share my screen here. Hopefully you can see there's a Gmail here that we sent. And we obviously could not take a vote of the council because we were not the whole council. There were just 3 of us. But what we did do was we registered our concern, the 3 of us, that the coastal development permit being requested by the American Tower Corporation should be held until we have a chance to review and participate in it. And the state parks people also had concerns about it. Scott, do you want to say more, or Claire more, about what we found and what we thought about that coastal development permit?
She did not elaborate on what exactly they were going to do with that. She said they approached her and tried to push through what they wanted to do to the changes to the
state
road.
parks lady, Linda.
Yeah, they tried to push that through and she stopped it.
And then they said they were going to go around Linda. Okay, right. Claire, you were going to speak, Claire?
Yeah. What I was going to say is that apparently what they mostly wanted to do is make more turnouts. And one of the things that really impressed me on this little trip was that when they, as you said in your note here, Greg, when they take down vegetation one time over a several year period of time, it grows right back. But when they continually mow something in order to make turnouts, you really do destroy the ecosystem in that area. And it seemed to me that was persuasive information in terms of not having too many projects that would require continual destruction of vegetation, because it seemed as though wise management would allow for the natural vegetation to survive, but the things they were asking for would not.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again because Claire's touching on a different issue. But the issue with American Tower Corporation and the coastal development permit was that we wanted a member of the MCC to be able to participate in any study group that is evaluating that plan. We didn't say anything specific, except that we didn't want that to go through without our involvement. Separately, the other thing we did was we took notes, and those notes are here. And we are not publishing these notes in the form of a letter because Kimberly has already been working on a letter. So all we're doing here in public is saying, we found these things. We would like to contribute these findings to the work that Kimberly and whoever she's going to work with is going to do in her deliberations and considering what kind of a letter we might want to send as a full council. Okay, so that was the thrust of what we're doing. And Claire was pointing out that one of those findings was they tried to, the biologists tried to assure us that as long as you're only once in a while doing some of this clearing, that the natural vegetation will grow back and the invasives will be overshaded. That was,
And we saw evidence of that happening already.
yes, we did see evidence of that happening already. So all I'm saying for the council here, my thought is we've produced 2 documents, but we are not yet in a position to propose a letter. That still, in my opinion, rests with the group that Kimberly is leading. Okay. And so we're just offering this material. So Kimberly, did you want me to stop now sharing and do you want to make comments or do you want to go through any of this?
I do have a couple of questions and just would like some further direction. I think what you said makes sense. In terms of the American Tower Corporation permit, I believe Lisa shared with us a permit that they already received approval for. So I'm wondering, is this a different permit?
Yes, it's a different permit that they do not have yet. And it was basically to create more turnout spots on the road.
Oh, okay. And my guess is eventually they're going to ask for paving because, you know, they paved all their other sites. And I think that's something we should oppose heartily.
You say American Tower is going to ask for paving or the...
That would be my guess.
Okay.
They're headed that way.
So I think it's fine, falls within our purview to include that stricture in any letter that you might draft for the council.
So I haven't had a chance to review the notes that you posted. Did you distribute those to the council as well?
All we did was, because of the Brown Act, we waited until 72 hours before the public meeting, and then we posted this material here. So that's the method of distribution, is in public. We are distributing our findings and everybody can see them and we can all talk about them. And now you can take them into account and work on your subcommittee to decide what to do with them.
Okay, so then my other question is, Linda had suggested that we could also do a second tour with the council members who were not able to go on this tour. Do we want to pursue that option, or did you talk with her about that, or are we discounting that option?
I don't recall discussing that with her. I'm not opposed to it. My question more is for you. Do we view there's some urgency to actioning the letter that you had drafted, to incorporating the additional materials we've now provided? Or do you want to wait until you've had a chance to tour it?
I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. So once I read your notes, I was also had planned to have a conversation with Linda after the tour, to talk about the letter and to talk about some specific issues. Am I still allowed to do that? Is that
yes, you're still on the lead of the working group on this. All we did was, as our part of the council, our little subset, we took our tour and are reporting in public what we found.
So if I were to add a comment for you, Kimberly, my experience with the Park Service allowed me to understand why they did what they did, how they designed the road so water flowed over it, why they had to sometimes go farther into the side of the road to understand what was there so they could maintain the flow of the water over the road better. What exactly they were doing when they were cutting brush, and it was very informative, and it made me feel much better about the work they were doing. So if you had an opportunity to go up there with them, I think it would be valuable. So.
Okay. I think I already know a lot of this, but I wanted all of us to have good information. And so that's why I thought this tour would be very valuable. Yeah. So I think I know the way forward now. Are there any other directions that you want to give me, or?
I don't want to give direction. I merely want to express a concept, which is that road is still terrible. It is very difficult to drive. It is incomplete. One of the things that the state parks people have asked for is a road management plan. And what we're saying is we want that road management plan to be developed as a precondition of approval of any further work on that road. Okay. And I won't be specific because I don't know enough, but it's clear that some of the drainage, we were lucky to go there the morning after a rain that night, the night before, and we could see some of the drainage isn't working. Okay. There's pooling. We could also see and appreciate why they designed what are called rolling dips, as opposed to water bars. It's explained in our notes. Okay, so we believe state parks' intentions were good, that their oversight was within the grounds of what they feel is a standard of care. But that still leaves us with a road that needs more work, American Tower asking for more, and the lack of a road management plan, all of which I think is grist for a letter saying, let's do that. In addition, it still leaves open the issue of an alternative route. And we got to the top where we could see the SFPUC road and gate. And I'm just amazed we don't use that, we meaning the collective we of people who need access to the peak. Why aren't we using what appears to be a much better maintained, safer road than the thing we had to go up, which was steep, narrow? I could see why that was perceived as dangerous and why they felt they had to do something. It's still not something I would want to drive.
Yes, it was kind of scary.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the answer to that, part of the answer to that, Greg, is the understandings with the county, because there would have to be different understandings with the other landowners to use the other routes. And I think it has just been easy and expendable for them to use the relationship with the county for that purpose.
But maybe the county shouldn't be quite so easy.
Well, that's another question, right?
Yeah, that's what I brought up too. Yeah, so what if we don't do it?
Right.
Yeah, what if the county says, no, we're not doing this anymore?
Well, there's a cost of doing this, a continued cost also. Dan, do you want to make a comment?
Yes. I wanted to know on the field trip when you guys were up there together, did anybody take any pictures or short videos of the critical areas that were really, of most interest?
I don't think I did.
think so. We didn't.
I'm afraid we did not, but I did hear your request too late after I got back down.
Well, I also requested it at the meeting before.
Oh, I missed it. So no, we did not take pictures. So if Kimberly or others want to go on another trip, that's an opportunity to take those pictures.
So may I just say one more thing?
Sure.
I just want to thank you all for going on that tour, because I was worried. So I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad you were able to go. And I'm glad it was valuable. And my last question is Scott still are Scott and I still the subgroup?
No. Just
No.
kidding. Yes. The answer is yes, right?
Okay, he's being funny. Now, of course, this will extend into next year where we might have a different chairperson. But for now, I see no reason not to allow you and Scott to continue your efforts. And if you wish to enlist a third person, just raise your hand and ask for more help.
Okay,
But
I think you've been the default third person. So are you saying that would change?
that'll depend on the next chair. See, I'm the third person because I was the chair. I'm happy to stay involved, but I serve at the pleasure of the council.
So you just made a final comment. We were talking about the road, et cetera. And to piggyback onto that, their last statement before we left them there was, we would love to find a better way to the top of this mountain. They would love to find a better way. They don't want to use the existing way to American Tower. They would love them to find another way. So, moving forward, I think if we might be put effort into that to see if there's another way.
Well, those are all things that you guys could put in a letter that you propose the council sign. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we've shared what we found.
I'd like to say one more thing. When they said this is a big emergency, we need to get the propane up to the top of the mountain. Apparently, propane trucks, like regular propane trucks, drive up that road every single day. This is not like an occasional thing. We need more propane. It's a constant flow of propane trucks going up that road. So that was not something I understood previously. So that may be something to include in your thinking.
I'm not sure.
I don't think they're there every single day. I think it's more like every few weeks, as I've seen them.
Well,
I think it's every few weeks. I don't think it's every day.
Well, I could be wrong, but it certainly seems to say it's not a rare thing.
I'm astounded they need it. It's supposedly for backup power. They're supposed to have electric power, and the propane is for backup. So I don't understand why they're depleting it so fast. That's a point worth researching. Okay, so I think all we're doing is reporting to the subcommittee on Montara Mountain Preservation for your consideration our findings, and we have done that in public. I'm willing to close this agenda item unless there are any other comments. Seeing none, I'll move on to managing Midcoast priorities. Mike has left the room. We don't have a report that we requested with follow-up on all the things we asked for. I guess I'm lost at what to say right now, except I did have a thought about how we manage Midcoast priorities. Mike is serving, I believe, 20 hours a week and covering 4 bases: Pacifica, the Farmers Bureau, Half Moon Bay, and us. So he has about 5 hours a week to devote to us. And of course, as we heard tonight, he's not intimately involved in preparation of all this information with all the departments in the county. As we saw last week when I presented the financial numbers, which need to be finalized, but I think ballpark we can say we generate the same amount of property taxes or more as a town the size of Half Moon Bay from residents. We don't have all the other property tax revenue, but we're the size of a small city. Yet we do not have the staff infrastructure supporting us to prepare agendas, to do staff research. We have to do all this stuff ourselves. And so the thought crossed my mind in managing Midcoast priorities that what we need is a general manager of the Midcoast. And you could call it an assistant general manager of the Midcoast or whatever. But when we changed supervisors, we lost apparently 100% of the staff supporting Don. We lost all of that expertise and knowledge. It walked out the door, whatever it was. And then we lost Len and Dave Olson, the council. We lost decades of expertise. So my thought is, for discussion, that we should ask for a permanent staff person that reports to the county executive office, not to the supervisor, so that they don't turn over when the supervisor turns over. And that's driven in part by my conversation with the people from North Fair Oaks. And again, I don't have this in writing, but they apparently report into the county in the Office of Community Affairs or something. So they seem to be getting their agendas, their minutes, their website, all done by county staff. Okay. They're unpaid, as I understand it, as we are. But I don't see why we wouldn't.
So I would strongly not support that.
Okay,
Greg.
well, I'm just bringing this
Very
up.
strongly.
Dan,
And we can talk about it.
You'll get your chance.
I know that you're getting a lot of time here.
Because I'm
proposing
the
it.
concept. Okay.
Yeah.
So my concept
going in
is
deep
that we get a general manager for the Midcoast. Now,
would that person be an administrative task person also?
I would hope so.
Okay, so they would be a minutes person, agenda person.
Again,
I think
review the bylaws.
Dan, please
Review the bylaws.
I think we could get a staff person that would also follow up on action items and so forth, and even do some research. Okay, so now Dan, you want to speak on this, so go ahead.
Yeah, so I would strongly oppose this concept, and I understand, that It sounds like it would make the job of the MCC easier, but I think that there could be some, what do they say? Unintended consequences as a result that the community would not, and it would overlap interests. So, yeah, it's a dangerous direction to go, in my opinion. We could, I think it would be better to reach out for some community volunteers that would, potentially help take some of the load off some people. I understand, and don't get me wrong, I understand, Greg. I know you do a lot of work, it's a lot of work being done here. I get it, but right now it's 100% in control of the community. Should stay that way.
More to say?
For now, no.
Okay. Any other council members have comments on this? Gus?
Yeah, I would just like to say that I'm just going to reach out to the guy I met at North Fair Oaks, because I just want to hear a little bit more about what support they get. Because whatever support they're getting, I don't understand why we wouldn't have the same level of support. They're very similar to what we are.
It's set up different.
It's not set up that different.
I
mean, they're appointed instead of elected, but other than that,
let him finish. Let him finish.
Well,
he just said what you're saying. Let him finish.
Yes. So I understand they are appointed and not elected, but other than that, they're performing the same job for the same amount of compensation. And so I'm very, very interested to understand what support they are getting. And I think there is at least an argument to be made that since we are performing the same function, whether the difference of how we wind up sitting in these chairs, I think, is less relevant than what is the work we're doing for our community, what is the work they're doing for their community. If those things are essentially the same, then I don't understand why we wouldn't have at least similar levels of support. So I just want to sit down with the guy I met from over there to understand, because I don't know what level of support they get, and I don't want to make, maybe they don't get any more support than we do, in which case I think that you're right, that we need to go to the community and ask for volunteers. But if they are getting a materially different level of support, I think it's at least worth understanding what that level of support is and understanding why, from the county's perspective, they wouldn't be interested in giving us the same level of support, or at least a roughly comparable level of support. So I just want to have a conversation about it.
Just to be clear on what I think the deliverable is here, the deliverable would be, if we have an agreement among the council, that we would form a work group of not more than 3 council members to explore what changes we want to see in how the MCC and Midcoast priorities are managed. And my suggestion is just one. There could be many other things that come up. We've talked about having an issues list, database, blah, blah, blah. There could be lots of other thoughts, but we could form a group to study what changes we want. And Dan, you could serve on it. Okay. It just depending on what 3 people make sense. All right. Any more council comments or questions? I see Kimberly has one remotely, but you're here, Scott.
I wanted to make, Claire last week said that North Fair Oaks is not an independent body, and I just want to throw that out there. But regardless of that, I would love to have administrative support. Period.
Okay, Kimberly, as council, before we go to the public.
Yeah, so I do think that we should have some better support or a better liaison with the county. And one of the things I want to bring up is that my understanding was that Mike O'Neill would not be serving in this role beyond December. Do we know if he's going to be replaced by someone, or has that changed and he will continue to serve in this role?
Well, last time I talked to him, he seems to think he's continuing. But
that was not my understanding. And I will just say right now that I would like us to stand up and oppose that, because I don't feel that we're getting the kind of service, and this is not a personal issue. I feel like we are not getting the kind of service that we should get. I mean, Lena had much less experience than Mike, and yet she seemed to deliver a lot more and be more in touch with the needs. And so I think at this point, I would like to see us request our own liaison to the county, who is not Mike O'Neill. I'm very concerned that Mike has a specific agenda based on his background and his feelings about certain topics. And I have heard him speak in public about things that, you know, in terms of the Midcoast, that I think are inappropriate. So I guess what I'm saying here is I think, you know, for 2024, we should ask the supervisor to install a new liaison, at least for the MCC, if not to the, you know, in that capacity that Mike has. And as far as the suggestion that you made, that does cause me some concern. I can see the issues that Dan raises. I have the same concerns because it's kind of a be careful what you ask for situation. And to have a permanent person in place who is a staff member, I think could pose some problems. So we need to look at this very carefully and figure out how we can get the support we need without compromising our independence and our ability to represent the community independently. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, so one decision criterion I'm hearing from you and Dan is both independence. Okay, not being controlled by the county in terms of what this person would do. And as council member, you wanted to comment on this?
Yes, I am actually in support of this. I understand both sides. I think obviously maintaining independence is important, but having clerical support could be very useful. And part of our issue is a lack of communication. And this person can actually be the communication we need if they have a direct link with the Board of Supervisors. And clearly, North Fair Oaks is receiving a lot of Measure K funds. So if this is helping them get their funding, why shouldn't we try to have the same for ourselves?
So there's a data point there that Ann is suggesting we compare the funding that North Fair Oaks has received with what we've been able to get as one metric on how well we're doing. And I think she's on to something there. So there's nothing specific being proposed except that we form a work group to study how to better manage Midcoast priorities. So, you know, we're not, you know, mandating anything that Dan or Kimberly would oppose. One of the things we should do is come up with a list of what the decision criterion are. And I would like to see what Kimberly and Dan would propose. Now I'd like to turn to the public, and here's somebody who has some experience working on the MCC. Len Erickson, your comments?
Thank you. On this item, I want to be clear that you're talking about a position that would be a salaried person reporting to county management, not to the supervisors. Okay.
Full-time employee of the county, reporting, I guess, for pay to the county executive office and reporting on a dotted line to support the District 3 supervisor. But when the District 3 supervisor leaves, this person doesn't turn over. This person remains on staff.
And is this person viewed as administrative, that is taking directions from others, or has some level of initiative responsibility?
I would say they take direction from the MCC. That's the whole point.
And that's the way that the Fair Oaks Council describes their fair to the person. That is, they direct their activity.
We are still researching what Fair Oaks does. I don't want to make any assertions. We're going to research what Fair Oaks is getting.
Okay, so my only comment is to certainly make that clear going into your next council year as a starting point, because unless I understand that, it's hard to make more input other than what's been said here. Thanks very much.
Okay, Lynn, thanks. Sid Young?
Thank you. I 100% agree with what Kimberly Williams said, and I've been watching MCC meetings for a long time, and it's like a little hamster on the wheel. You guys run so hard, but the county often will give you the brush off. So maybe we do need somebody rather than Mike O'Neill, who I spoke with Ray one time and talked to him about the side of the road along Devil's Slide between the tunnel and Pacifica, and how many branches and bark debris and rubble from the landslide that happened last winter, and to see if somebody would get that cleared off, because it's related to the storm of last December. And just this week, I was driving on that section of road and I saw a tow truck. I mean, you can't even pull over on that road. There's so many branches in the turnout lanes. And there was a tow truck trying to get a car up onto its thing. And it was like down in the ditch with all the branches and debris. And I asked I asked Ray, he said he'd have Mike look into it. Mike just gives me the little link that you can report stuff to Caltrans. And I mean, I feel like we have a county to advocate on our behalfs. It's not up to private citizens to fill out links to Caltrans, but still nothing's been done. And it's almost been a year and the storms are coming. So I don't see Mike as all that effective. He's good at reading off little notes in the beginning of our meeting, but I don't know if I'd like to have a private conversation with Kimberly to find out what kind of disparaging things he said about the Midcoast. So anyway, that's what I would say, is maybe you should try to get a different person.
Well, I'm hearing a couple of things. One of them is, keep in mind that Mike is not full-time, right? So the person we're looking for would be a full-time resource, and the supervisor might use some of their time for something else. But I can't believe that Half Moon Bay doesn't consume a full time of some administrative person, including doing such things as filling out tickets on Caltrans. So your point is, in part, you shouldn't have had to fill that out. You asked an official. The official should have taken care of that, and the official should have followed up on whether or not anything is done. That's two parts to your comment, if I understand it correctly.
The other part was just that I felt like that was a bigger stretch of highway than you could just make one ticket for. And hopefully the county has a little more pull with Caltrans than I do.
Okay, thank you. Burnett?
Yeah, in the last meeting, there were some concerns raised about how the MCC would be communicating with the county and so on, where they wanted to funnel it through the supervisor. I just wonder if there's any additional updates as to that process, if that's still the process, or if it's changed, or if they are going through that process, how's it working?
What I would say is the communication protocol for the county should be part of what this subgroup on managing the Midcoast should study. I know there was considerable opposition. I know that we still don't have our answers on letters we wrote 6, 8, 9 months ago. It just doesn't seem to me that communication is adequate. And the idea that we funnel communication through a bottleneck who's working 5 hours a week on our issues seems problematic to me. Now, if that person were full-time, maybe that's a different issue. So I would say that a subgroup that works on managing the Midcoast should address the question of protocol and come to agreement with Ray and the county executive on how they want to do it, and bring it back to us for comment.
So can I make one more comment?
There's time for one more comment.
Okay. If we can get the metrics behind how many hours per week, what exactly we want them to do, it would be easier to make our case for a head count, right?
I think you're saying we need to draft a job description.
Something like that.
Which we can do.
This amount of hours a week to this amount of hours a week to this, so they know exactly what they're going to be doing throughout the 2 weeks between our meetings.
Right.
Okay.
And I would hope this person would have the initiative to follow through on things we had already written, to go looking for stuff if we assign them a research task. If we have a question about herbicides used in Humboldt County, okay, they could do things so that the council itself doesn't have to do all the legwork as well as the administrative tasks, that we have some staff help bringing us prepared information. Okay. That would be my hope. All right. Well, I just
one more comment.
one more comment by Dan.
Yeah. So, apparently, none of you really kind of thought this through, but, what you're proposing,
Do first, think later.
the dangerous area is what you're proposing. You will have zero control over any outside interests influencing this, whatever type of, help. And this influence that could be opposite of the interests of the community could slowly creep in and you wouldn't even see it happening.
How is that different from having Mike?
Mike is here just as an aide. He's not an employee of the MCC. He's just reporting for the supervisor.
So having 100% control of no support is better than partial control of non-zero support. Because that's how I just interpreted what you said.
No.
Okay.
I'd like to also point out, Dan, that Mike is not, completely. Mike is a filter. And there is communication going on there between Mike and the supervisor that is not always within our favor or our control.
Mike is one issue. I'm addressing the issue that you're talking about hiring, again, having a full-time employee that's staff for the MCC. Do you understand? Two different things. I'm talking about opening up the idea of staff, MCC staff. That's exactly, you understand? That's what I'm talking about.
I didn't hear it was going to be full time either, but it should be a co-sider.
Well, at any rate, so
there's no way of controlling that. What you're asking to do is you're asking for the arm of the county to have their hand and once you open that door, you're just not going to be able to really you will lose all ability to really truly monitor. Because things can slip in slowly. You wouldn't know. You're thinking, hey, okay, we hired AI, and it's just it's going to automatic. It's gonna be fine. I won't have to give so much interest. I won't have to give so much attention anymore. And it's just a very slippery slope. So I'm raising the flag that it's a dangerous area to enter.
Okay,
Kimberly's got her hand up over there.
Kimberly.
I just want to make one more comment on that. I pretty much agree with Dan on this, but it occurs to me that there is a way that you could, anytime the county is paying for someone, paying a staff salary, the county controls that staff member. And so if the county could, this is still a control issue, but if we were given funds to be the person, to be the entity hiring the staff member and the staff member reporting to us, that we were paying the salary with a grant or something, then that would set up a different dynamic.
I think that's a great idea. That goes right along with having a budget for the Midcoast. But let's study that as we go forward. We'll come back and decide when it's time to discuss it. Do we have people interested in working on a work group regarding this topic? Gus is, I am, and Dan is. Do I see any other hands? All right, fine. Okay, I'd like to move on to council member activity, and we are early on the agenda, but I'm warning you that this topic may take a minute. Okay. One of the things that I think Ann have been working on in the background has to do with the pesticides issue. You will recall on October 25th, the El Granada advocates presented extensive materials. They brought in experts about the use of pesticides and herbicides, and they came up with a series of what they call asks. It's requests of the county. Those requests are posted on the website, at least one version of them. There may be a newer version, but the idea was We want an integrated pest management report. We want you to tell us before you do the spraying, warn people where you're going to do it, post notices. We want you to report how much you're using, where, et cetera. This turns out is nothing revolutionary. There are several other counties that I've seen and that they cited where integrated pest management is a regular practice. In fact, there's even a manual, I think it was 2012, the San Mateo County wrote saying we'll do integrated pest management. Okay, although it's questionable whether they've done it. So they've given us this ask. Now, we, at the time, it was November 25th, expected the county was going to hold a November 1st session that the RCD was going to hold to discuss the issue of herbicides. We were going to use that to compare and contrast, with what they said before we reached a position. Okay. That session was canceled. And Nick Calderon has now proposed to hold a session at a different venue, but on January 24th, the day of an MCC meeting, so that we're all available to attend. And at this venue, and I don't have details, and he's texted me, he will talk to me about the details. At that venue, the county would present its position on this matter. Okay. And then presumably we can compare and contrast what we've heard from the El Dorado advocates, what we've done in our own research, what we've heard from the county before we take a position. So that I think is the state of play. And I see four options. One is do nothing. I don't think we can ignore this issue. It's important for the community. The other is wait until January 24th and hear what everybody has to say and follow up with another meeting or a special meeting since our meeting would be replaced. Another thing we could do is, and Ann Rothman has actually drafted a draft letter. We could tentatively agree with the asks that El Granada advocates have prepared. And then another wrinkle, which I woke up from a nap and posted to the website just before the meeting, and I will share with you now, is we could instead say, we're not prepared to take a position at this time. And I'm trying to share my screen here so you can see it. My battery is running low. Sorry. Okay. Here's a draft of yet another alternative, which is in this letter, we say at the last sentence, the MCC has taken no position on this matter to date, pending your official response at that meeting on January 24th to this letter. So what we could say to them is, rather than waiting until January 24th to do anything, we could forward the requests, the asks from the El Granada advocates to Parks and the county and say, we want you to be aware, these are the materials we have been given. These are the requests. And when you prepare for your January 24th meeting, we would like to hear not only about the state of pesticides and what you're doing, we'd also like you to comment on the requests of our community members, right? And reply to us in writing at that time on what you think about the asks, so that before the MCC reconsiders everything, we have positions from, the county.
Yeah, I think you should kind of just it's going to take a little while, just let it evolve by itself instead of trying to manage its evolution. It's going to take a little time. First, we have to wait for Nicholas, and then maybe after what he says, there may be all kinds of different. It's probably going to turn into some type of a hybrid request. So that's my guess. Right. But anyway, I think this is consuming a lot of time. It's unnecessary at this point. That's my opinion.
I don't think it's unnecessary. I think that we need to decide what to do on this issue.
Before we have all the information?
Yeah, all I'm doing is asking them to comment on the request that's presented to us and the material we've been presented. I don't like waiting until January 24th. This issue has been lingering for months. I don't know if you remember, but the El Granada advocates wanted to talk to us. Kimberly, help me out here. Was it September, August? It was a long time ago. So I think by merely asking them to comment on what we've been given, I don't want to wait until January 24th and let things evolve. So I have to disagree with Dan on that.
So-
Claire, did you want to say something, Claire?
I think the Parks already has this information that the group would like to ask for. But so there's really no point in sending it to them just so they know. But there is a point in sending it to them to say, we are holding off right now on making our final pronouncement because we're wanting you to get together with these people and say something reasonable to their requests. And we're sort of challenging them to do that rather than just wasting time at their presentation on January. And besides that, it really bothers me that they scheduled this knowingly at the same time as an MCC meeting. There are probably lots of reasons for that, but it's disrespectful, and I don't like it.
You want to not attend the January 24th meeting? Or are you saying
I'm saying why can't they make a presentation at the MCC meeting? Why do they have to have their own meeting at the same time as ours? Or have their own meeting on a different day? But not say, move out of our way, we're doing this.
That's part of the answer. But it'd be speculation on my part.
Well,
So
we have both speculated on that, but it's not a good look, and it's not a good precedent.
all right. Anne, what do you have to say?
Thank you. Well, I do believe this should move forward. It's not insignificant, in my opinion. And the letter that I drafted at the was basically saying that the asks were reasonable. And I mean, if the council's not ready to vote on that, I understand. But I think at a minimum, we should do what you're suggesting and saying that at least get a reply from them about the asks and get that in front of someone, because they're not asking for anything that isn't already implemented in a lot of the other Bay Area, counties. And I really feel that this is significant and it is important. And I like I said, I don't think that they're asking for too much. And it should get the ball rolling. And the parks, when Kellex was in, she seemed to be, they were supposed to have a program about some of the pesticides, and then all of a sudden they canceled it. So I don't know why, but I think it would be important to have a real discussion about this and not just tell us what they're going to do, because I feel like, just like we're saying about the administrative support, this is what always happens. You ask for something and then somebody else tells you, well, this is what we're going to do, without really accepting any of the input from the MCC. And so I feel like at least if you're asking them to put into writing what their response is to the asks, I think that would be a good start.
Do you have any thoughts about whether or not we allow the January 24th meeting that we would hold at the MCC to be canceled?
No, I agree with Claire. It is outrageous that they're doing this. It seems to me that they're doing everything they can to not involve people who have concerns. That's what it looks like to me. They know when our meetings are. There was no reason to schedule their meeting at the same time. That's ridiculous.
Well, I think he said that he wanted to be sure the MCC members could attend. That was his stated reason.
Well, like Claire said, why doesn't he come to the MCC?
I can't answer that.
Anyone who wants to come to our meeting can attend.
Kimberly, you want to comment?
I have to say that I agree with Claire and I agree with Anne. I think the El Granada advocates have actually, when they initially approached us, they had a very extreme, approach to it, and they were suggesting some big changes, and they've slowly migrated to a more they've adjusted their ask and their view over time since their first comments to this council all the way to their presentation and then post presentation. So they've been willing to come to the table and discuss and adjust their expectations and adjust their ask. What I have not seen is county parks or the RCD adjust their thinking or be willing to even consider adjusting their thinking. And in fact, what I continue to see is more pushback. So while I understand where they're coming from in some ways, I think there has to be some acknowledgement of the party that came forward with the questions. So I think that we do need to advocate for answers. And I think we do need to push back on them usurping our meeting time, because we're suffering from, not enough meeting time already. And as Claire said, this keeps happening. And as Anne said, I do feel it's an attempt to lessen the number of people who they have to deal with to attend these things. So I think we should push back on this. I think we should send a letter, as you said, asking for them to respond and asking them to change the date. I'm not sure why they chose, that doesn't make sense the reason they chose that date, which means we would have to cancel an entire meeting. I mean, I guess I don't understand this January 24th meeting. Is it a 2-hour meeting on pesticide management? What is the nature of the meeting?
My understanding is it would be, but I don't have that in writing. So one outcome of this discussion would be that we do not write this letter now, but we have December 13th. I could come back with a revised letter after I have a chance to talk to Nick. But we might say things like, we're happy to have you attend the MCC meeting on January 24th. And before you do, we would like you to comment on the asks prepared by the group in question. So that's one option. I do want to take some public comment here.
Can I say something?
I want to take some public comment because we haven't allowed that yet, and we're going to have to do it before we're done. And then we're going back to the council and decide what, if anything, council activity is going to proceed on this issue. All right. So Sid, you wanted to make a public comment?
Yes, I totally agree with what Ann and Kimberly and Claire said. And I think you shouldn't cancel your meeting. You can invite Nick to your meeting. And I don't know why he wants it somewhere else either. Why can't he just join via Zoom? And last of all, both times they've had meetings on both either the county parks meeting, which I attended, and the Board of Supervisors meeting when they were approving, I forget which park it is down in Pescadero, but they were doing a whole thing with herbicides and other brush clearing, equipment. And I said, why are you using Roundup when it's known to be a carcinogen? And don't you worry about your workers or anything. Crickets. And I think they just want to be able to do the fastest, cheapest, easiest thing. And they're not worried. And they don't want you guys getting involved in telling them how to run their parks. But that's just my feeling, only because it got brushed aside at both the parks meeting and at the council meeting already. Board of Supervisors meeting, sorry. So I don't understand why. I think I'm highly suspicious of why Kellick's canceled. You may call her and ask her personally, why was it canceled? Because maybe Nicholas had something to do with that. Anyway, I really think you should not cancel your meeting and ask them to attend.
Could we, as a variation on that, ask them to either attend our meeting or attend another meeting? We would agree to attend another meeting on a date that's a not MCC meeting. Would the MCC consider attending a meeting they host on the 17th of January or some other date? Is that a problem for the council?
I'd do it.
Scott,
I'll do it.
Scott,
Yeah.
Gus would do it. Dan, would you do it?
I
would make
observed them
four. What
putting it on.
do Ann, Kimberly, and Claire think? Would you attend a meeting sponsored by Parks on a date that's not an MCC meeting on this topic?
Yes.
I would attend it, but there may be brown issues if we want to talk about it.
Dan, you're talking over Claire. Claire, go ahead.
I would attend, but there may be Brown Act issues if we want to talk about it at the meeting.
Well, Brown Act issues just being all together.
Well, we could all be together and not talk to each other and not say anything. But if we want to do some give and take with all of us with the Parks Department people, then that's not at a public MCC meeting, and we would all be talking, or at least some of us would be.
Yeah, that's a great point. That means there is a complication with having a separate meeting. We could only listen. We couldn't.
It would have to be posted as a meeting for MCC.
It'd have to be posted as a special MCC meeting.
Hmm.
That's an interesting point. I need so I need to raise that with Nicholas, as well as the dates. We're happy to have him come.
The whole issue is being addressed. It's coming out of this community, so it's perfectly appropriate that it's held at an MCC.
Yes.
Venue.
With public participation.
You could be the good guy too. Oh, we'd love to attend, but due to the Brown Act, we wouldn't be able to participate. Right. Please come to our meeting.
Well, I'm not going to put it in writing. But so I will accept with the council's, agreement that we'll invite him to an MCC meeting, or we will consider with Tim Fox, our counsel, some additional meeting, but we need to make sure what the Brown Act rules are so that we can participate. Otherwise, we believe we would be blocked. So that's, and then the other thing, though, I did want to transmit the asks to him. Somebody made the statement, Kimberly, you made the statement that this stuff was sent to Nicholas. I don't have that knowledge firsthand. What I've heard secondhand is the distribution of some of the materials that the El Granada Advocates crew prepared were not distributed to some parties, but I don't have the details and I don't see them here to speak to it. So I'm concerned that they haven't officially been notified. So if it's okay with the council, when we come back on December 13th, I'll have a short letter that still does transmit the most current stuff to them to make sure that we're on record. And I think we would still ask them to comment in advance if that's okay.
But this is just a heads up letter to them. We're not asking them to do anything or change their
And we're not
behavior.
taking a position.
We're not taking a position. This is just, hey, this is what we'd like to see. This is a heads up letter. We're not being confrontational at all. And that, I think Nicholas asked us not to be confrontational until he reviews it and then meets with us, right?
Yeah, he asked us to not write the letter until they have a chance.
A confrontational letter. This is just, hey, by the way, this is what we're looking for when you deliver us the information.
I'm sorry. I think Anne had the right idea, and that is for the MCC to write a letter requesting that Parks respond to the El Granada Advocates' requests. I think that's reasonable, and that's not confrontational.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's what this letter does.
And to also reschedule. Well, okay, then I take back everything I said earlier at the beginning, because I wasn't aware at the time of the conflict of the meetings and everything. So, but also I think in the letter should be requested that they don't have their meeting at the same time day as our meeting.
Okay. So I could take this direction and redraft this letter to bring up. Oh, Melinda, you are here. Melinda, do you want to comment? We've been talking without your background involvement.
Yeah, thank you. I actually just wrote something to say, if you don't mind me reading it. Hold on.
Go ahead. Public comment.
Okay, thank you. As citizens, we've been wanting to partner with the government and work cooperatively. It's frustrating how we've tried to communicate in person, and we have some delays that have been happening with our asks and our initiative. Of course, back in June, we were concerned about glyphosate being sprayed in the parks, and we asked to present at the MCC and at the Parks Commission, which is something you probably don't know about. After we were able to get scheduled on the MCC agenda originally in August, Nicholas Calderon called me mid-August and requested us not to present at the MCC, and that he would not permit us to speak on the agenda at the Parks Commission until after the glyphosate forum on November 1st. So that was kind of the first delay there. And actually, even before that, we weren't able to present at the Parks Commission. I told him we would still present at the MCC because the public needed to express their concerns sooner than later. In early October, we spoke with Supervisor Mueller and sent him a written proposal of our asks. Ray said he could send our asks straight to the Board of Supervisors because it would not cost much to implement transparency of records, accountability, and an oversight committee. Then later, Supervisor Mueller decided it would be more respectful and cooperative to speak with the Director of Parks before sending it. The feedback Supervisor Mueller shared was that Nicholas did not want the asks sent to the Board of Supervisors, but he would agree to incorporate the points into park policy. So we were excited at that point to be potentially working with the parks cooperatively, and we assumed at this point that Nicholas had seen the letter of asks. But according to him on October 25th presentation, he had not received it. However, he did agree that Ray had spoken to him about it. At this point, the glyphosate forum had been canceled with an undetermined rescheduled date. Yet Nicholas asked the MCC to wait on sending a letter of support of our asks to the Board of Supervisors until after the forum. So once again, they're waiting. And then the RCD said at the November 8th meeting, the meeting that they were not going to engage with the public in the forum setting, and that is why it had been canceled. As taxpayers who pay both the RCD and the park's expenses and salaries, we would expect both entities to engage with the public, whether the public are informative and respectful, as we have been doing, or if they are upset because they are concerned there's harm being done to their families. It is disappointing to see them disengage. The forum is now scheduled for January 24th. We have been waiting since August to make progress with this initiative. In light of the delays, we hope we have earned your respect with respectful communications, bringing expert speakers, doing extensive research, providing proven and effective alternatives to pesticides, attempting to partner with government agencies, and providing very reasonable asks with requests for San Mateo County and San Mateo Parks to create transparent record keeping, accountability, and to transition away from pesticides. We are hopeful the MCC sees themselves as a voice of the community and not necessarily the voice of government agencies. In light of these delays, we respectfully ask the MCC to vote tonight to send a letter of support to the Board of Supervisors for the community's asks. Thank you for your time and all that you do to volunteer in supporting our community. We appreciate it. That's it.
Okay, so what I heard was that Parks does not officially have the asks. I heard that officially being sent to the Board of Supervisors was blocked. There's been repeated delays, and we, of course, were part of that because we got swamped with a number of agenda issues that postponed hearing the pesticide herbicide issue. All right, so where we are now is we're in council member activity. I proposed a letter which is not going to fly based on the discussion here, but a modification of this letter could be adopted in December 13th after I've spoken with Nicholas, and could cover the issues of what's the date, whether it's an MCC meeting, and it could forward the asks for them to comment on before date X. And I would stick with January 24th, not letting it go any further than that.
Melinda wants it to go to the Board of Supervisors.
Well,
Right?
we can't stop her. Nobody can stop her as a citizen from registering her concerns.
She's asking us to write a letter to.
Right. She's asking us to endorse her. But I haven't yet, the council hasn't yet, as far as I'm concerned. Does the council feel comfortable with me writing a letter endorsing her asks? Or do you want to wait and hear what the Parks Department has to say?
I think we should at least wait to hear. But I like the idea of sending them the asks and saying, please comment on
Please
this.
comment on
like,
that.
I think we should absolutely do that. But I don't want to just go ahead and commit to a position before we heard what they have to say.
So I'm totally in support of what you want to do, send that letter to Parks. But again, Melinda wants us to send it to the Board of Supervisors.
She wants us to send an endorsement of the asks to the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, that's what you want, right, Melinda?
Sorry. Yes.
Not the Parks. You want it to go to the Board of Supervisors.
Right. A letter of support for our asks to the Board of Supervisors. Yes.
So, and what I think I'm hearing the steps are, we want answers from Parks. And once we hear from Parks about their comments, then we're prepared to send a letter supporting something.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And that'll give us a chance to have all the facts.
Again, but that's more delay. All right.
It not
Claire?
only it not only gives us a chance to have all the facts, but it allows us to make an effort to lower the temperature, because I think that for some reason, some people involved in this feel really threatened by the other parties. And if we can at least model behavior of listening to both sides and then saying, here's what we think, I think it's important that we do listen to both sides. The problem is that Parks hasn't been talking, and they need to do that in order for us to be able to make a show of being fair. So yes, please encourage them to talk.
Okay.
So I got a question for Melinda.
Go ahead, Dan.
So Melinda, I understand the request for us to write a letter directly to the Board of Supervisors, but I guess I'm asking thoughts on that, and why not just disregard Nicholas Calderon's request for us not to write him a letter? And because I think we're jumping over the Parks, where Parks is really the target. And maybe there's some benefit that you can think of just not sending it to Parks, even though they requested us to wait. But if, that would be one option, just not entertain their request. Or the other option will be to go direct to the Board of Supervisors with the same similar letter. And I'm just not sure of the strategy. Not sure if it's. I don't know. I just thought.
I don't know what you expect Melinda to say.
May I
Pardon?
say something?
Yeah, Kimberly.
So what I've noticed here, I mean, I don't think Parks has not been part of this conversation. Nicholas has attended 2 of our meetings in which this was discussed, including Melinda's presentation. So I'm a little confused about why you think Parks hasn't been part of the conversation or is not aware of the asks or the questions. My impression is that Parks, as Claire said, for some reason has felt threatened and has sort of not responded. And I would like to get them to respond. And I'm okay with waiting for them to respond, but I think we need to do that in a different way than they proposed, because it's just not appropriate for them to schedule over our meeting. I do think we should ask them to respond to El Granada advocates, because they've been putting it off. And
Yes.
I will say that El Granada advocates and the other people in the neighborhood have made an effort to evolve their thinking and their stance. They've reached out, they've done due diligence, they've listened to the other sides of the issue. They've conceded some things. I mean, they've made every effort to reach a middle ground. At least that's what I've seen. And I haven't seen Parks even attempt to do that. And I'm very concerned about that, because yes, I think we should hear all sides. But if one side is just digging in and not willing to even engage, except on their own territory and without an open mind, then that's not going to change anything. So at this juncture, I really feel we need to go to Parks and say, you need to come to our meeting. There are Brown Act issues. It's not appropriate for us to cancel our meeting and come to a different meeting. And, make every effort to make them feel comfortable and heard. But at the same time, I don't think we need to, bend over backwards to just be manipulated by Parks. I mean, that's the way it sort of feels at this point to me.
Okay, Ann Rothman, do you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. I was going to suggest that we give a shorter timeline for a response that we let Parks respond by our next MCC meeting, which is in just 2 weeks. Is that correct? Anyway, give them a shorter time to respond to the asks, and then at that time ask for them to attend our meeting, and we can then approve a letter to the Board of Supervisors sooner rather than later. I really would prefer not to keep kicking the can down the road. And as the weather is changing, keep in mind all of the pesticides they're putting down, as the rain comes, it's going to go right into the watershed. And so, this is something that does need to be addressed. And if they're just going to try to keep pushing us off, it's to me, it's not worth it. And like you said, like Kimberly said, Nicholas has been to our meetings. There's no reason he couldn't respond sooner. It's not like this is broadsiding him. He knows what is being asked, and he should be able to give a comment, I believe, sooner rather than later. And then I think we should pursue it with the Board of Supervisors if his response is not adequate.
All right. I hesitate to open this up for more public comment, but one last time. Sid?
My comment is because Michelle texted me and said I misspoke, that I should have said the RCD and I said Parks, or the other way around. I'm not sure. So in the record, I meant that Parks was giving you guys the brush off or the stonewalling, just like they did with all the water coming out of Quarry Park. And RCD, I don't understand why they canceled your meeting, unless it was at the urging of Nicholas. So if I misspoke before, I guess I was just being passionate. I just wanted to clarify the record. Thank you.
Okay, Melinda, last public comment.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I feel like we have learned the park stance by them. Originally, Nicholas said to me, the forum is going to be about how and why we use glyphosate and how it's the only way. So basically, they're going to just be telling us it's safe and it's the only way they can do what they need to do. So that's what I was told. And then we can see we've given them opportunity to respond, as you've said, and we can tell their stance is they're just going to dig in. But that's my opinion from what I feel, from what I've been dealing with, and from what I've been seeing. So that was what I wanted to tell you. Thank you.
Okay, Jane, we've closed public comment already. We've opened it again, so we'll give you the chance. This is it. You're muted. Sorry. Start over.
Unmute.
Jane, there you go.
Okay. So I really appreciate Claire's comment about people being very civil and respectful during this conversation. I just want to say I hope that we can focus on the topic, which is really about whether glyphosate is safe or not, and whether we want it in our community, whether neighbors feel comfortable having it sprayed behind their homes. And so I just want to state my hope that we can focus on the topic at hand and hope for the best with the process. Thank you.
Okay, Claire, one more comment.
Just the absurdity of everything we have to deal with comes up in that we are not allowed to write a letter to the Board of Supervisors as a council. You guys can write a letter to the Board of Supervisors, but as things stand right now, we can't. So keep that in mind.
But Claire is pointing to a guideline we were given by Mike O'Neill at a recent meeting, which I think the council has not fully accepted, but we were told to go through Mike before sending materials to the county. I'm not clear, but I did come up with a potential immediate action item, two action items. I will talk to Nicholas. I will discuss the Brown Act issues, our concerns about canceling the MCC meeting, and see what I can do to schedule a meeting in January. But I also came up with an idea that I could make a simple edit to the letter that's on the screen to allow us to forward the asks today or tomorrow and get them to be on notice that we want their response. And the change is in the sentence that begins, as you and your team arrange for a meeting presentation on this topic in lieu of the regular meeting on January 24th. What I would change that to say is, as the MCC and your team arrange for a meeting presentation on this topic in January, we request that your team review. So we'll skip the question of, is it their meeting or our meeting? We'll skip the question of, is it on January 24th or a date that Nicholas and I will arrange, and we can still be on record as, here is the asks that we have received, and we would like you to respond in writing, and we can get that part done. So what does the council think of making that edit to this letter and allowing me to send it? It does not meet Melinda's requirement that we endorse her position, but it does meet the process requirement that we involve parks in the county. So what is the sense of the council on making that edit? Will I be allowed to, that would require a vote. So I move that Greg be authorized to change that sentence to talk about the MCC and his team arranging for a meeting in January, and then request that they review the asks of El Granada advocates. Do I have a second for that motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
2 seconds. Okay, so discussion on the motion among the council here.
I say let's vote and send
That's
it.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, let's vote and send it. You want to vote?
Yeah, I want to vote.
Wait.
We're gonna.
Kimberly?
So if I want to make a change to the letter, do I do that after it's approved?
No, I think she's right. We should, I was proposing an amendment to the letter. You want to propose a different amendment or amendment to my amendment?
Yeah, I have a picky amendment to the letter.
Okay, go ahead.
In the last sentence of the first paragraph, and it's where it says, in addition, they have prepared a series of requested procedure changes which are attached, and you have asked in caps right there, and also in the next paragraph. I would eliminate that. I don't think that's necessary, and it's kind of confusing. I would just say the series of requested procedural changes which are attached, and request that your team review and respond in writing to the attached requested changes.
Well, just my position on this is that the El Granada Advocates Group has called them the asks. They produced a document titled the asks.
It doesn't matter. And the reason is, Claire said we need to lower the temperature, and I think it's better to be more professional in the way you word the letter, and not. It's confusing because usually you have something like that when it refers to an acronym or something, and that's not the case here.
Okay, what's the sense?
I think it just makes it a little more of a professional letter.
You got this? Can you do the changes?
I can make her change. What's the sense of the council?
Greg,
Makes you happy.
I gotta say, as much as I support this, I gotta say I'm really not comfortable with the vote, because this is not an item that's properly agendized. This is council activity. It's out of line to actually go this far.
Dan's right.
That's actually true.
Okay, so Dan's true. So we can't send the letter until we have another meeting.
Okay, that's
We could, however, authorize Greg or someone else to communicate these sentiments directly to Nicholas.
Well, I plan to do that in order to try and schedule the meeting for January.
People could come up with put their heads together, come up with a letter, and then just bring it. We'll vote on it the next meeting.
All right. And so the subcommittee who will work on this letter, I nominate myself, Ann, and Kimberly. Is that okay?
Yes.
I can't commit because I really don't know how much time I have right now.
That's fine. That's fine, Kimberly. There's a third person who wants to be involved. Ann and I can handle it. If the third person wants to be involved, speak up now. All right, Dan, thank you for that procedural point. All right, so Dan's right. And then just for the El Granada advocates, you may not be aware that we've been given some guidelines to restrict our communications, which hamper our ability right now while we consider those about writing to the Board of Supervisors. Okay, so that's this topic. The action items are me to talk to Nicholas and to draft a letter with Ann. Okay. I wanted to bring you a couple other council member activity items, which are not for voting, but I want you to be aware that there are work being done that will potentially come before the council. Here is a letter Ann Rothman has drafted. It's posted on the website. She is speaking to several concerns about the design of the work being done on safety improvements in Moss Beach. I don't think we need to get into the details now. I merely want this to be a matter of public record. And so that when it does come forward on the agenda, all of you will have a chance to have seen what her concerns are, right? And at that time, it won't be a surprise that it's coming up at a meeting. Is that understood? And then I also wanted to make you aware that I drafted a letter. And as I recall, I drafted an email. And as I recall the last council meeting, people were uncomfortable with the chair sending an email such as the one I'm drafting. I'm just showing you what it is. And then again, this will come before the council, but I view this matter as actually urgent. There was a fire that destroyed Catherine Slater's house, Catherine Slater Carter's house. The response time was 20 minutes to get there and 10 minutes to get water on the fire because they couldn't find the hydrant. And when they tried to find the hydrant, they couldn't get it to work. Now, my first involvement with the MCC was in 2018 when I conducted a survey of all the hydrants in both CCWD and Montero water districts. And I found that less than 1% a year were being tested, in spite of the requirement they would be tested every 10 years, which would be 10% of them being tested every year. And I found low water pressure. And so we posted comments on Cypress Point registering concerns about access and fire and a whole bunch of stuff in a lot of detail. And because of what just happened, it makes me worry that the ingress and egress from the Stetson fire station in Moss Beach is worse than we thought. And it's going to get even worse than that. And we already lost one property. So I want to write to CFPD and I want to register the concerns that are in this letter, which were gleaned from our.
This is not on the agenda.
It is on the agenda.
Where?
Look on the website. It's under council member activity.
I'm looking at the agenda. I have a printed agenda right here.
Right.
I don't see
Look
this.
on the website. It's posted as a document under council member activity.
I think you're stretching council
I'm not
member
stretching
activity. You're stretching the purpose of council
I'm telling you
activity.
what I'm working on is this letter. And I'm just making the council aware
Okay.
that this letter or this email is under consideration. I would welcome anybody in the council to look at it and be prepared to discuss it on a future agenda topic. That's the reason I'm bringing it up. I'm doing this in public, Dan, so that it isn't a surprise. When this comes up, it won't be the first time. Okay. And those documents were posted, Ann's and mine and El Granada Advocates materials are all posted under council member activity on the website, which is our way, according to Tim Fox, of delivering material to the council in public. Okay, so that it doesn't violate the program. I'm done. Council member activity by other members of the council.
Okay, so since nobody has their hand up, I've been getting a lot of requests, a lot of complaints about access issues in Quarry Park around the top to El Granada Boulevard, closed gates, more fences being put up by the landowner at the top of the hill. And I did a lot of research to try to figure out how exactly that parcel is set up and does the parcel go around both gates and all that kind of stuff. So at some point, I'm probably going to bring this up as an agenda item because I'm getting a lot of requests to bring it up to the council regarding access through Quarry Park to the rest of the Golden Gate recreation area and that area up there.
Does this overlap Susanna Cantrell of the mountain bike group in Quarry Park?
Yes.
And is it related to that property that looks like an amoeba that's in the middle of the park?
Yes.
Okay, we've had these issues before.
Yes.
I've been told the owner has changed and a new owner is now the one that's causing the problem.
Yes.
Okay. Understood. That issue has been brought to my attention as well.
Yeah.
And I
have emails about people have been emailing me with their information with the legal easement issues and stuff like that. But I want to research. I want to make sure I understand fully what's going on and what the next steps would be.
If you go to Coastside Mountain Bikers, they have a very comprehensive review of this subject.
Yeah, I'm on their Strava club, so I get
Well,
their
go
information.
go to their Instagram and their Facebook because it's
Okay.
comprehensive.
Yeah, and I saw some response. I even saw Sid respond to this issue from 2020.
Other council members with activity? Okay.
I cannot drop the Instagram post, but again, Rick Barker is comprehensive and he's right on it.
Okay.
There's no need to do research. He's already done it.
Okay. Future agendas. In December, we have our officer elections. Okay. And we'll be looking for new people in every position because, as it's pointed out to me, we cannot repeat in the offices we're in. I also still owe the council a follow-up report on stormwater. Ann has brought some Highway 1 maintenance plan issues to our attention, which we could discuss on December 13th. Len Erickson has some things to turn over to the council, so it might be worth doing there. Based on the discussions we just had, there's going to be a draft letter on the herbicide issue that we're going to have to vote on. Hopefully it'll be short because we just spent a lot of time discussing it. And I'm going to suggest that we try and fit in the email I drafted on the fire access issues in Quarry Park and getting Coastside Fire Protection District to answer in writing how they have assessed the safety and security of the proposed development, because I'm very concerned that it is not safe. Okay. And I want to make sure we have Coastside Fire Protection District on record, with us and or with planning, depending on how that goes. So I can see that on the December 13th. That's a pretty full. Any other suggestions for?
Oh, Claire.
Agenda, Claire has your hand up.
We have a referral from the planning department for formal comment on, excuse me, on the Moss Beach Fire Station. And I know that Ann's already done a lot of work on that, and I guess Dan has a little bit too. I wanted to ask the council how they wanted to handle our response to this. If we should do it just basically with the planning group as usual, and I'm hoping that Ann would be able to contribute significantly to that, or if you wanted to bring it to the entire council.
Do they have updated drawings?
I believe they do. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
That's a problem.
Dan, everybody got it. You got a copy of whatever there is.
I know, but I'm talking about a hard copy. Sometimes it's very difficult, to navigate through their information on our computers. And I know they like to do that, and probably for the reason it's hard for us to read. They know it.
They're not going to send us hard copies. So the question is, if we do this as a group or as a
fire station, we could go look at them.
Right. I would say to Dan, in the old days before he retired, John Riddell was happy to meet with me down at Half Moon Bay and spread plans over a table and look at them. So I would suggest you try contacting CAL FIRE and have.
Am I the only one that wants to know what they're going to do before we make a comment?
Apparently, you're the only one who wants to see the paper.
Well, how are you going to know what they're proposing if you don't read it? I mean, yes, maybe you are better at kind of truly getting a feel for what they're proposing with a kind of just a quick look at the the computer.
The question is, do we want to agendize this? When do we have to comment by, Claire?
They wanted it by the 8th of December, but they said they were willing to extend it.
Till when?
I don't know.
I think the last fire board meeting of the year is the 20th.
Having public comment on this.
I don't think it's something that they're going
to tell you that the last fire board meeting of the year is December.
It's the planning commission that's involved here.
So Claire, one approach would be for you and say Ann and a third council member to review those plans and comment. Another would be to bring it to the entire council for presentation and review. What's the sense of the council? Do you think we can delegate this to Claire and Ann and someone else, or do you think
Kimberly is the third member usually?
I don't know. Kimberly, are you available?
Yeah.
Are you available to participate in the short term on this?
I can do our usual, I mean, our usual process for these. If there's more, then I'm not sure. If we'll need more time on this, then I'm not sure about my availability. It would depend on, when you would need me.
I will ask for an extension, and I'll ask for, maybe the first of the year sometime in January. And because okay. And if I think the three of us can address this, I'm just asking the council if they would prefer to have the three of us address it and then bring it to the council for formal approval of the comments. In any case, Ann, Kimberly, and I will take a look at it first.
All right. I would appreciate if the three of you would screen it and report on December 13th, whether you think there's something that's so problematic that the council as a whole needs to see it. That would also give Dan and me time to try and get access to the plan documents. And so by the 13th, we could give additional direction.
The plan documents are out there. I just dropped a post into your chat.
I saw your chat.
It's all there.
I saw your chat, Michelle. So
But it's all there.
Michelle. So I'm happy to have the three of you start looking at it, and that will allow Dan and I to independently review it. And then on the 13th, we can come together and decide whether we need to actually agendize it at a meeting. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's okay with you, Ann?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay. So I appreciate your effort. I have no other future agenda topics. Do I hear a motion for a meeting?
Let's get out of here.
Okay, so moved by Kim.
Wait,
Kimberly,
I have one.
Kimberly has something.
Back it up.
Sorry, you move so fast. I meant to mention that for the next meeting, I will also have to attend remotely. So I guess, is there anything special I need to do I'm giving you a heads up that.
Yeah, if I understand it, you will still have a voting exception, but by not attending in person, it means we will vote you in as chair because you won't be.
Right.
We've covered this in the previous.
Yes, let's vote on that now.
No.
All right. We understand
okay.
you here. I do not see that as posing a problem at this time.
So someone else will need to post the agenda at the Moss Beach post office because I won't be able to do that in December.
I can do it.
Okay, thank you,
Claire.
Okay.
Now let's adjourn.
All right. I have a motion for me. Are we agreed? No objections to adjourning?
Second.